The mockery of humanity's ships. The Galactic Council was a group of powerful alien leaders who controlled much of the galaxy. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall, and they believed they knew everything about power and technology. In their eyes, humanity was nothing more than a young, inexperienced species. Earth's ships were laughable at best, small, outdated, and easily overshadowed by the advanced fleets of other races. It was a grand council meeting, held in a vast, shimmering hall. The walls were made of a material that glowed with strange symbols, and the air hummed with the quiet energy of thousands of beings from different worlds. The council sat at the head of the room, each member seated on high, looking down at the human representatives who were brought before them. The room was filled with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as the human leaders stepped forward, ready to make their case. For weeks now, Earth had been asking for a chance to prove themselves, to show that they were more than the primitive species the Council thought they were. But the Council had already made up their minds. They had been watching humanity from afar, and they had seen nothing impressive. "You want us to take you seriously?" The Council's lead representative, a towering creature with 4 eyes, sneered. His voice echoed through the room like thunder, making the human representatives flinch. The other members of the council exchanged amused glances. They were eager to hear Earth's plea, but they didn't believe the humans had anything to offer. To them, humanity was weak, and its ships were nothing more than toys. "Tell us, Earth," the lead representative continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "What exactly makes your ships worthy of our attention? You think you can stand against the might of the galaxy's greatest fleets? Your ships are tiny and outdated. You've only just learned to travel between stars. What are you hoping to achieve by sending a few primitive vessels into the void?" The human leaders stood in silence, feeling the weight of the council's words. They had expected resistance, but the sheer arrogance of the council was overwhelming. Still, they had prepared for this moment. They had no choice but to try. A young diplomat named Jenna, who had been sent as Earth's voice, stepped forward. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine as the eyes of the council focused on her, but she knew what she had to do. "With all due respect," Jenna said, her voice steady but filled with determination, "our ships may seem primitive to you, but they are not what they appear. Humanity has faced great challenges, and we have always found a way to overcome them. We ask only for the chance to prove that we are capable of more than you think." The council members laughed, their laughter echoing around the grand hall. It was a cruel sound, full of years of superiority and disdain. They had seen hundreds of species like humanity come and go, each believing they had something to offer. The truth, as far as the council was concerned, was simple. Earth was not a threat. They had no power, no advanced technology, and no true place in the galaxy. "Prove yourselves," one of the council members, a slender being with translucent skin, sneered. "And how do you intend to do that? With your outdated ships and your pitiful weapons? You're a species barely out of your infancy in the grand scheme of the galaxy." Another member, a hulking creature covered in shimmering scales, snorted. "Your ships are pathetic. They couldn't even defend your own planet from a few raiders, let alone stand against the might of the galactic fleets. You should be grateful that we've even considered your request." The human leaders exchanged uneasy glances, but Jenna refused to back down. She had heard these insults before, but she knew the truth. Humanity had something the council didn't understand. Earth's strength didn't lie in advanced weapons or powerful fleets. It lay in their determination, their ingenuity, and their ability to adapt. "We don't need to match your power," Jenna said, her voice growing stronger. "We don't need to be like you. What we have is something far more valuable. We have the will to fight, to survive, and to protect what's ours." But her words fell on deaf ears. The council had already decided. They were convinced that humanity was no more than a speck in the grand scale of the galaxy. They didn't care about Earth's will to fight. They cared only about power, about what was visible and measurable. As the meeting drew to a close, the council made their final decision. Earth's request was denied. The human ships were deemed irrelevant, and any attempt to join the galactic community was dismissed. Earth would remain in isolation, at the mercy of the larger powers that dominated the stars. The human representatives left the council chamber, their heads low but their hearts filled with quiet resolve. They had been humiliated, but they had not been broken. Jenna knew that the council's mockery wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. "Let them laugh," she whispered to herself as she left the hall. "They don't know what we have." Far beneath the surface of Earth, hidden away in the deep caverns of the planet, there was something the Galactic Council hadn't seen. An ancient fleet, long forgotten by the universe, waited in silence. And one day, it would rise. But for now, the Council had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity, the hidden history of Earth's fleet. After the Galactic Council dismissed humanity's ships as nothing more than weak and outdated, Earth's leaders knew they had to find a way to prove their worth. Humiliated, yet determined, they'd retreated to their world to plan. But not all of them were discouraged. In the shadows, some knew the truth. Humanity had an ancient and secret weapon that the galaxy didn't know about. Far beneath the surface of Earth, hidden deep inside old forgotten bunkers and sealed caves, was the key to humanity's strength. An ancient fleet, built long before the Galactic Council ever ruled the stars, was buried in secret. It had been abandoned and forgotten for centuries, hidden away to keep it safe from the prying eyes of the galactic powers. The secret was known only to a select few. The archives, long thought to be just old stories, contained clues to the fleet's existence. But it wasn't until a small team of researchers uncovered a hidden document that everything started to change. This team, led by an old historian named Dr. Lucian Harris, had spent years searching for proof that humanity had once been powerful beyond measure. The document they found was old, almost too old, and it detailed the construction of a fleet that had been designed to protect Earth in the darkest of times. Dr. Harris had always been intrigued by the stories of Earth's ancient past, of a time when humans ruled the stars and fought epic battles against powerful enemies. The records he uncovered were not just stories. They were blueprints, complete with diagrams and instructions on how to activate the fleet. At first, no one believed him. The idea seemed too fantastical. The Galactic Council had so thoroughly convinced Earth's leaders that humanity was insignificant that the thought of a hidden armada felt impossible. But Dr. Harris, driven by his passion for the truth, refused to let it go. He convinced a small group of trusted individuals, scientists, military leaders, and engineers, to take a closer look. Together, they decoded the ancient texts, unraveling the secrets that had been hidden for centuries. What they found shook them to their core. The fleet wasn't just a collection of old ships. It was an entire armada, made up of powerful warships that could rival the mightiest fleets in the galaxy. And these ships were not just advanced in technology. They were equipped with weapons and shields unlike anything seen before. Some of the ships even had artificial intelligence systems capable of adapting to any threat. As the researchers worked day and night, they realized that the fleet had been designed for a time like this, when Earth would be under threat and its survival would be at stake. The fleet wasn't just for defense. It was a weapon meant to strike at the heart of any invaders. But the question remained, why had humanity hidden this fleet away for so long? Why had they chosen to leave it buried under mountains, oceans, and deserts, waiting for a time when Earth would need it most? The answer was unclear, but there were rumors. Some believed that the fleet's creators had feared the power it held. Others speculated that the fleet was hidden away to protect humanity from the dangers of the galaxy, ensuring that Earth's people would never use it unless absolutely necessary. But now, the time had come. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake in underestimating Earth. And while the world leaders struggled with doubt, others were ready to act. General Elena Torres, one of the military leaders who had been brought into the secret, had seen enough. As the evidence mounted, she knew what had to be done. "We have no choice," she said. "The Council sees us as weak. We have to show them the truth. We have to awaken the fleet." Torres, who had spent her career studying Earth's defense systems, understood the danger of revealing such a weapon. The fleet was powerful, but it was also dangerous. The weapons systems were capable of massive destruction, and the ships themselves were so advanced that they would be a shock to anyone who saw them. But Torres also understood that humanity's survival depended on it. The Galactic Council would never take Earth seriously until they saw the true strength of humanity. With the decision made, the team began the long and difficult task of awakening the fleet. It wasn't just a matter of turning on a switch. The ships were buried deep underground, hidden in ancient bunkers that had been sealed off for centuries. There were no maps, no directions. The only clues were in the ancient texts, which described the fleet's locations in riddles and coded language. It was like searching for a needle in a galaxy-sized haystack. Dr. Harris worked alongside the military engineers, decoding the final pieces of the puzzle. The locations of the fleet were scattered across the planet. Each ship was hidden in a different part of Earth, buried in a place that would have been nearly impossible to find without the right knowledge. The team had to travel to remote locations, deep in the Arctic, beneath the sands of the Sahara, and beneath the depths of the oceans. Each discovery brought them closer to unlocking the full power of Earth's forgotten fleet. Finally, after weeks of relentless searching, they found the first ship. It was buried beneath the ice of Antarctica, hidden away in an ancient hangar that had been sealed for thousands of years. When the team finally broke through the thick ice and opened the hangar doors, they were stunned. The ship was massive, its sleek, alien design glowing with power. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The fleet had been built to last, and its technology was beyond advanced. The first ship powered on with a hum that echoed across the frozen landscape. The team stood in awe as the systems came online. It was a moment they would never forget. Humanity had just awakened its greatest weapon, but the real question was, would they be able to control it? And would the galaxy be ready for what was coming? The journey was only beginning. The Galactic Council had mocked humanity's ships, but they had no idea what was about to hit them. Earth was no longer the weak, insignificant planet they thought it was. The fleet was rising, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The fleet awakens. The team stood in the cold Antarctic winds, the vast expanse of ice stretching out before them. The hangar door creaked open, revealing the massive, dormant warship that had been hidden for centuries. Its design was like nothing the human scientists had ever seen, sleek, angular, and metallic, with faint glowing lines running along its surface. This wasn't just any spaceship. This was a relic of a lost civilization, an advanced weapon from a time long forgotten. Dr. Lucian Harris stepped forward, his breath visible in the freezing air. His eyes were wide with awe as he stared up at the ship. The team had spent weeks decoding the ancient texts that led them to this location, but standing here in front of the ship, it felt surreal. This was more than just a discovery. It was a revolution in the making. "It's incredible," Dr. Harris whispered, almost to himself. This is humanity's true legacy." General Elena Torres was beside him, her face set in determination. The moment of discovery had arrived. Now, the real challenge began. The ship's systems were ancient, and no one knew for sure if they would still function after all this time. But they had no choice. Earth's survival depended on awakening this fleet. The Galactic Council had mocked humanity, belittled their ships. But once they saw the true power Earth was capable of, they would have no choice but to respect them. "Activate the systems," General Torres ordered. "Let's see if this thing still works." The engineers, a mix of military personnel and top scientists, hesitated for only a moment. They had been preparing for this moment for weeks, but the reality of it felt far more overwhelming than they had anticipated. Dr. Harris opened a panel on the ship's hull and began typing in a sequence of commands based on the ancient documents. The ship's systems hummed to life slowly, its lights flickering on one by one. A low rumble vibrated through the ground, and the ship's massive engines began to stir, sending waves of energy through the icy air. Slowly, the ship began to lift off the ground. For the first time in centuries, it was awake, and it was moving. "Look at that," one of the engineers murmured, staring at the ship as it hovered just inches above the snow-covered ground. "It's alive." The team stared in disbelief, their faces filled with awe and excitement. The ship, which had been hidden beneath layers of ice for millennia, was once again fully operational. And this was just one ship. There were many more to be found. "We've done it," General Torres said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Now we just have to find the rest of them." But as the excitement of the moment settled in, a cold realization washed over them. This fleet, this powerful force, was not something they could hide forever. The Galactic Council had dismissed humanity's ships, but they had no idea what was about to come their way. Earth had just revealed its hidden strength, and the galaxy was about to find out the hard way what humanity was capable of. The team worked quickly to secure the ship and make sure it was fully operational. They had to move fast. The ships of Earth's forgotten fleet were scattered across the planet, hidden in various remote locations. Antarctica was just the beginning. "Prepare to move out," General Torres ordered. "We'll head to the next site." The next site was located deep in the Sahara Desert, where an even larger ship was said to be buried beneath the shifting sands. The team was ready to continue their search, but Torres knew that they couldn't afford to take too long. The Galactic Council's mockery had been only the beginning. As soon as they learned that Earth's fleet had been awakened, they would surely try to stop it. Earth had no allies in the galaxy, and the Council would not hesitate to strike first. The hidden fleet was humanity's greatest secret, and the galaxy would soon be forced to acknowledge it. But Torres couldn't help but wonder, would the fleet be enough? Would it be enough to protect Earth from the larger, more powerful forces in the galaxy? The journey to the next site was long, and as the team traveled, the realization of what they were about to unleash began to weigh heavily on their shoulders. They were uncovering Earth's hidden strength, but at what cost? The fleet was powerful, but it could also be dangerous, especially in the wrong hands. The weapons on these ships were capable of wiping out entire planets, and humanity was still learning to control the technology they had uncovered. As they neared the next location, the team could feel the weight of their mission. General Torres was determined to see it through, but even she couldn't ignore the growing uncertainty. Could Earth truly hold its own against the Galactic Council, with its vast fleets and unmatched power? Or had they awakened something that might one day turn against them? The vast deserts of the Sahara stretched out before them, and they finally arrived at the coordinates given in the ancient texts. The ground was scorching, and the team worked quickly to dig through the sand, uncovering the entrance to an underground hangar. The next ship was buried deeper than the one in Antarctica, but it, too, had been well preserved by time. The ship's hull was larger than the first, and it looked even more advanced. The team got to work quickly, using all the knowledge they had gained to bring it back to life. As the ship powered on, the team knew they were one step closer to proving that humanity was no longer weak. Earth had awakened its greatest weapon. But as the ship's systems came online, an alarm began to blare. "Something's wrong," one of the engineers said, his voice filled with urgency. The lights on the ship flickered, and an unknown energy signature appeared on their scanners. "It's them," General Torres said, her voice tense. "The Galactic Council knows we've awakened the fleet." Suddenly, the weight of their mission became clear. Earth's fleet had been hidden away for centuries, but now that it had been revealed, the Council would come for it. The war for Earth's survival had truly begun. The galaxy's response. As the last of the ship's systems powered on, General Torres stood before the massive vessel, her mind racing. The once dormant fleet of Earth's past was now fully awake, and yet the realization of their actions weighed heavily on her. The Galactic Council, now aware of humanity's hidden strength, would not simply stand by and allow this fleet to be unleashed. The ship hummed to life, its energy signature spiking in the control room, signaling a surge of power. It felt as though the very atmosphere around them had shifted. The faintly glowing lines along its hull brightened, casting eerie reflections on the faces of the team members. In the midst of the quiet tension, Torres spoke. "We need to move quickly," she said, her voice cutting through the thick silence. "If the Council detects our fleet, they will come. We can't afford to waste time." The engineers scrambled to finalize the ship's systems, making final adjustments to the weapons and shields, all while the air around them grew thick with anticipation. It wasn't just the discovery of a hidden fleet that was at stake. It was the survival of Earth itself. The Galactic Council's disdain for humanity had been evident for years, but now they had no choice but to face the reality that Earth was no longer weak and no longer helpless. Dr. Harris, who had been silently observing the ship's systems, suddenly turned to face the general. His face was pale, but his eyes shone with a new intensity. "General, there's something strange," he began, his voice shaky but resolute. "I've been looking at the ship's navigation logs, and it seems like the fleet was intended to do more than just defend Earth. These ships, they've been to other worlds." Torres walked over to him, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" Harris hesitated for a moment before continuing. These ships were designed not just for war. They were meant to carry humanity to the stars. They've been to distant planets, charting unknown territories. They were preparing for an eventual conflict that would force humanity to fight for its place in the galaxy. The implications of this revelation were huge. The fleet had been created long before Earth had ever come into contact with the Galactic Council. Humanity had been preparing for an intergalactic struggle, though they hadn't known it. The stakes were much higher than they had initially thought. Before Torres could respond, the communication officer spoke up. His voice was urgent, almost frantic. "General, we've detected something. A signal. It's from the Galactic Council." The room fell into a tense silence. Torres' heart raced. She stepped forward to the communication terminal, knowing that their time had just run out. The signal wasn't just a message, it was a warning. "They know we've awakened the fleet," Torres muttered under her breath. "The Council won't stop until they wipe us out." Dr. Harris stepped forward, his face grim. "We don't have a choice anymore. They'll send their fleet to Earth. We need to strike first." Torres nodded. She had always known this day would come. Earth's weapons had been hidden away for a reason, and the moment they were revealed, a battle was inevitable. But she hadn't expected it to come this quickly. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's resolve, but now it was clear. They would not hesitate to destroy Earth if they thought it posed a threat. "We can't wait for them to attack," Torres said firmly. "We'll go on the offensive. The fleet needs to be fully activated, and we'll strike at the heart of the Council. They won't see us coming." The team immediately set to work. The hidden fleet of Earth was now operational, but there was still a lot to prepare. Coordinating the ships, powering them up, and ensuring their weapons systems were fully functional would take time. But with the knowledge that the Galactic Council's fleet was already on its way, there was no time to waste. "General," one of the engineers called out, his voice trembling with excitement and fear, "the first ship is ready for launch. We can take it into space now." Torres nodded, feeling a rush of adrenaline. This was it. Earth's first true strike against the Council was about to begin. But even as she prepared for battle, she couldn't shake the thought that this was only the beginning. They may have awakened the fleet, but now the galaxy's most powerful forces would come for them. "We're not just defending Earth anymore," Torres said, her voice unwavering. "We are showing the galaxy that humanity will no longer be overlooked. We will fight back." As the first ship prepared to launch, the rest of the fleet was being readied for battle. The team knew that the stakes were higher than ever before. A galactic war was about to unfold, and Earth was about to take its place on the front lines. The Council's retaliation. The air inside the command center was thick with tension. General Torres stood in front of the giant screens, watching as the first ship of Earth's hidden fleet was readied for its launch. Outside, the cold wind howled across the barren landscape of the Sahara Desert, but inside the command center, a quiet storm was brewing. The Galactic Council was coming. Dr. Harris paced nervously, his mind working at a frantic pace. The revelations of the past few hours had left him with more questions than answers. Why had the fleet been hidden for so long? And why had humanity's own government abandoned these ships, leaving them buried beneath the earth? "General," Harris said, breaking the silence, "the fleet is ready, but we need to be careful. The Council won't come alone. They'll bring their full force to Earth if they think we're a threat." Torres nodded, her mind focused on the task at hand. "I know, but we can't just sit here and wait for them to strike. We have to show them that we won't be intimidated. We have the fleet now, and we will use it to defend Earth." The room was filled with military personnel and engineers, each working tirelessly to ensure the fleet was fully operational. Torres knew that time was running out. The Council's forces would be here any moment, and they had to be ready to fight. But even as she stood there, her thoughts turned to the enormity of what they were about to face. The Galactic Council was an alliance of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They controlled vast fleets of warships, had centuries of advanced technology, and their influence reached across countless star systems. And yet, for all their power, they had underestimated humanity. They had thought humanity's ships were weak and primitive, and they had mocked Earth's military forces. Now they were about to learn just how wrong they were. "We need to make sure that every ship in this fleet is ready to fight," Torres said firmly. "Start the preparations for launch." The engineers quickly went to work, ensuring that each of the ships was powered up, their weapons systems fully calibrated. Meanwhile, the communication team scrambled to monitor incoming signals. The Galactic Council had already sent an advanced fleet to Earth's orbit. Torres had no doubt that it was just the beginning. Suddenly, the room fell silent as a red alert blared across the speakers. A large fleet of ships had just entered Earth's solar system, and they were headed straight for the planet. The Council had arrived. "Get ready, everyone," Torres said, her voice steady despite the growing pressure. "It's showtime." Outside, the first of Earth's ships lifted off the ground, rising into the atmosphere as it prepared to engage the incoming enemy fleet. The massive warship moved with precision, its thrusters roaring to life as it ascended into the cold expanse of space. Torres and her team watched as the ship climbed higher and higher, its engines leaving a trail of fire behind it. The stakes were now clear. This was no longer a simple defense. It was a battle for survival. Humanity had made its stand, and the Galactic Council was not going to back down easily. The first wave of the Council's fleet moved into position, their ships forming a massive formation in space. Their designs were sleek and intimidating, the hulls of their vessels gleaming with advanced weaponry. It was an awe-inspiring sight, but Torres had seen humanity's fleet in action. These ships, though old, had a power all their own. The technology was centuries ahead of what the Council had anticipated. Humanity's fleet may have been forgotten, but now it was Earth's greatest weapon. On the ground, the military personnel worked furiously to get the next batch of ships ready for launch. Torres knew that they couldn't afford to waste time. The first ship was in the fight, but they needed more. They needed all of the fleet's power if they were to stand a chance against the Council. "General," Dr. Harris called out, "there's something strange happening. The Council's ships, they're not just waiting. They're scanning the area. They're looking for something." "What do you mean?" Torres asked, her eyes narrowing. "They're looking for the source of the signal," Harris replied. "They know that the fleet is here, and they're trying to locate it." Torres' heart raced as she realized what that meant. The Galactic Council knew more than they had let on. They were coming not just to fight, but to obliterate everything humanity had uncovered. They couldn't allow Earth to remain a threat. "We need to get the rest of the fleet into position," Torres said, her voice sharp with urgency. Now, the engineers and military personnel moved quickly, activating more of the ships and preparing them for battle. The first ship was already in space, engaging with the Council's forces, but it wouldn't be enough. Earth's hidden fleet had to be revealed in full if they were going to survive. The battle in space was already escalating. The first wave of Council ships fired their weapons, massive energy blasts cutting through the darkness of space, narrowly missing Earth's first warship. But the ship was fast, evasive, and the crew was ready. The old technology of Earth's ships was nothing like the sleek, advanced designs of the Council's vessels, but they had one thing the Council didn't: the element of surprise. As the second wave of ships launched from Earth's surface, Torres watched from the command center, her fists clenched in determination. The Council's fleet was vast and powerful, but humanity had one advantage: they weren't going to back down. The war for Earth's survival had begun. The first clash. The first few seconds felt like hours. Inside the command center, General Torres and her team watched the flashing screens as humanity's ships entered the fray. The once dormant fleet of Earth was now fully engaged in battle. The Galactic Council's massive warships loomed over them, their weapons charging as they prepared to fire. But Earth wasn't going down without a fight. "Target the lid ship," Torres barked, her voice commanding. "Open fire with everything we've got." The command was given, and the ship's weapon systems lit up. The energy cannons, built to cut through the toughest armor, shot out blasts of destructive force toward the lead vessel of the Council's fleet. The shockwave from the first shot shook the ship, but the Council's ship absorbed the blast, its shields flickering briefly before stabilizing. "It's not enough," the weapons officer reported. "Their shields are holding strong." Torres' expression hardened. The Council's ships were formidable, and their shields were far more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced before. But the hidden fleet had something the Council didn't expect: a deep knowledge of this technology, its limitations, and its vulnerabilities. "We can do better than this," Torres muttered. "Prepare the secondary batteries. We're going to overload their shields." Outside, the battle raged on. Earth's fleet, with its old yet powerful warships, wasn't giving up. The ships darted in and out of the massive Council fleet, each human ship using speed and agility to its advantage, dodging laser blasts and returning fire. It wasn't a perfect match. The Council's ships had better technology, better weaponry, and more firepower. But Earth's fleet had something even more important: the element of surprise. Dr. Harris watched in awe as the battle unfolded in space. "We didn't think this would work," he said under his breath. "The technology, it's holding up. It's actually holding up." But the real test had only just begun. Torres watched the battlefield with intense focus. The first wave of attacks had been launched, but now it was time for the real strategy to take effect. The Council's fleet had concentrated their fire on the lead human ships, thinking that would be enough to crush them. But they hadn't anticipated Earth's hidden fleet coming from all directions. The second wave of Earth's ships arrived, flanking the Council's fleet on all sides. The Council's commanders were caught off guard as the human ships emerged from behind asteroids and other hidden locations within the solar system. For a moment, it seemed like the tide had turned. A new strategy was put into play. Earth's ships didn't have the raw firepower to match the Council's best, but they were quick and unpredictable. The human ships attacked in waves, targeting weak points in the Council's defense, finding every small vulnerability in their formations. It wasn't a flawless plan, but it was enough to throw the Galactic Council off balance. "Keep the pressure on them," Torres ordered, her voice steady as she observed the chaos unfolding on the screens. "We need to break their formation." The command was followed by a series of calculated strikes, each one landing with precision. Energy blasts cracked open the shields of several enemy ships, and Earth's fleet moved in to strike at their exposed weaknesses. But the Council wasn't about to give up without a fight. Their retaliation was swift. Huge energy beams shot out from their flagship, scorching the space around them. The first few human ships to encounter the blast were ripped apart in an instant, their shields collapsing under the sheer force of the attack. "General," one of the officers cried out, "we've lost 2 ships. We can't keep this up for long." Torres gritted her teeth. She knew the losses were inevitable. But the human fleet had already done what was once thought impossible. They had made the Galactic Council bleed. The Council was on the defensive now, and Earth's ships had become a thorn in their side. The first direct hit from the Council's flagship sent shockwaves through the command center. A loud alarm blared, signaling a direct hit on one of the human warships. The ship's hull was torn open, debris floating into space as the damaged ship began to drift helplessly. "Deploy the reserve ships," Torres commanded, her voice now filled with urgency. The remaining fleet had to be used strategically. If they didn't keep up the fight, they would lose the momentum they had gained. "We need to hold them off long enough to bring down their flagship. If we can get to their command ship, we can disrupt their coordination." Earth's fleet had taken casualties, but it wasn't over. The humans would not surrender. The Council's ships, for all their power, had underestimated Earth's strength. This was more than just a war for survival. This was humanity's statement to the galaxy. Earth was not weak, and it would not be crushed without a fight. The battle continued to rage on, with explosions lighting up space as both sides threw everything they had at each other. Earth's fleet held on with grit and determination, launching attack after attack despite the overwhelming odds. The Galactic Council was stunned. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. And now, they were paying the price. Inside the command center, Torres watched the chaos unfold, her eyes sharp and focused. She knew that the battle was far from over, but the first phase had been a success. They had sent a clear message. Earth was ready to fight back. The turning point. The battle was now in full swing. Earth's fleet had taken heavy losses, but the fleet's determination was unwavering. General Torres stood at the front of the command center, her eyes locked onto the massive screen that displayed the ongoing conflict in space. The Galactic Council's fleet still outnumbered them, but humanity's resilience had thrown their forces into disarray. "We've lost 3 more ships," reported one of the officers, his voice tense. "Their flagship is moving in closer, preparing to strike again." Torres clenched her fists. The Council had been relentless, but they were beginning to falter. The human fleet had used every last bit of their advantage. Surprise, unpredictability, and sheer willpower. The first wave of human ships had already been decimated, but Earth's remaining forces had grown increasingly bold, striking where the Council thought it was safe. "We have one shot at this," Torres said, her voice cutting through the tension. "If we don't take down their flagship now, we're done for. We need to break their command structure, disrupt their leadership, and force them into retreat." Dr. Harris, watching from the back of the room, stepped forward. "We know that their flagship is the heart of their operation. If we can disable it, their fleet will lose all coordination. But we need to time this perfectly. Any misstep, and it could be the end of us." Torres nodded, her mind racing. The strategy was risky, but it was humanity's best chance. If they could get close enough to the flagship, they could disable its communication and weapons systems. But getting close meant facing the Council's strongest defense. The odds of success were slim. "We don't have a choice," Torres said firmly. "We move in now." Outside, in the cold expanse of space, the ships of Earth's fleet maneuvered with precision. The remaining human warships, though battered, had one advantage: speed. They darted through the asteroid fields, weaving between debris and asteroids, using the terrain to shield themselves from the Council's direct fire. But there was no time to waste. Torres watched as the human ships neared the Galactic Council's flagship. It was enormous, its sleek surface reflecting the light of distant stars. The flagship's massive weapons charge, preparing for another devastating assault. "Brace for impact," shouted the weapons officer. "They're firing." The first wave of laser blasts from the flagship cut through space like lightning. Earth's ships scattered in every direction, narrowly avoiding the deadly blasts. A few of the human vessels weren't so lucky. Explosions rang out across the battlefield as ships were torn apart by the Council's firepower. "We can't keep dodging like this," Dr. Harris shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "We need to engage." "Hold steady," Torres barked, her voice calm but urgent. "We're almost there. Just one more push." The ships continued their evasive maneuvers, and at that moment, something unexpected happened. The Council's flagship shifted slightly in its position, an unusual move for such a massive ship. It was vulnerable, and Torres knew this was their chance. "Now," Torres shouted. With a swift, decisive move, the remaining Earth ships broke away from their evasive patterns and charged toward the flagship. The weapons on the smaller ships fired relentlessly, targeting weak points in the flagship's hull. The blasts hit their mark, and for the first time, the Council's flagship showed signs of damage. "We've breached their outer shields," the weapons officer reported. "Keep firing." The human fleet poured everything they had into the flagship. As their weapons blasted into the Council's ship, sparks flew from the impact zones, and large sections of the flagship's hull began to buckle. The flagship's shields flickered as Earth's warships closed in, getting closer than ever before. Inside the flagship, the Council's commanders were scrambling. They hadn't expected such a fierce response from Earth. They had underestimated humanity's will to fight, and now they were paying the price. The flagship's shields were failing, and the communications array was beginning to short-circuit. "We've almost got it," Torres said, gritting her teeth. "One more strike, and we'll take their command down." The remaining Earth warships launched a final volley, their weapons lighting up the dark void of space. The blast hit the flagship's core, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The flagship's massive frame shuddered under the force of the attack. For a brief moment, everything went silent. The flagship, once a symbol of the Galactic Council's power, was now crippled. Its weapons were offline, and its communication systems were failing. The rest of the fleet, now without coordination, hesitated. "General, we've done it," Dr. Harris said, his voice filled with disbelief. "The flagship is disabled." But the battle was far from over. As the human fleet celebrated the victory, the rest of the Galactic Council's fleet regrouped, their remaining ships positioning themselves for a last-ditch defense. The fight wasn't finished yet, but humanity had just achieved something unimaginable. The Galactic Council had underestimated Earth, and now Earth had turned the tables.